Hi. So the Declaration on the Russian World Teaching is a document of which I was a principal drafter. The seeds of the origin of the document come from my longtime work on the Russian world teaching, and I've been writing about this for over a decade. I've had many close colleagues, amongst which was Father Cyril Havaron, and as well as Father Nicholas Denisenko and others who have written on this. And so it's something that I've long had difficulty with. And so when the war happened, I was asked by Fordham University and then my own university of Exeter, the University of Exeter, which is in Devon, UK, to talk about the religious angle, the religious aspect of this. And so I started to try to explain the Russian world teaching and how I argued that you can see this systemically in the speeches of President Putin and in the homilies as well as long-time writings of Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, and in a much softer version in Metropolitan of Hilarion. And I explained this, and I said in some of these webinars where I was speaking that really what was needed for the Orthodox Church was something akin to the Barmen Declaration, which was initially drafted by Karl Barth as well as the confessing Christians against the German Nazi church, to be frank. And so we needed to reinvent this for this time. And I said that to a number of my friends. Certainly Father Cyril heard this, and particularly my very close colleague, Pantelis Kalitsidis, who is at the Volos Academy. And so there was some great concern about, from Orthodox scholars, how Metropolitan Hilarion has used his position at the University of Freiburg to project, frankly, Russian power and a distorted version of Orthodoxy. And so there was some talk, how could Orthodox theologians respond to this? And so Pantelis approached me, Pantelis Kalitsidis, and he said, would you write something that's understandable, a type of almost letter or statement that would be able to explain the Russian world teaching to people and to systematically refute this teaching? So this was in an email in which many people were CC'd. Father Cyril Havaron, who I've known for a very long time. And I said, yes, I'll do that. So I contacted two of my friends. One of them is Father Richard Rene, who is a priest in Canada and a writer of a considerable talent. He's finishing his doctorate at the University of Toronto, and the Orthodox theologian Paul Ladouceur. And I met with Richard online, and we came up with a sort of framework for the text. We used as a sort of consciously to frame it, we used the Barmen Declaration. So we, the first part explained the Russian world teaching, which is not something which is always so very well known. And then we tried to identify various things that we thought were essentially needed to be anathematized. And we used that term. Various sort of aspects of this teaching which were simply unorthodox and went against the Christian gospel as understood through Holy Tradition, interpreted by the Fathers. And so we then identified various affirmations which were the opposite of these false teachings, and found scriptural passages that really could bring out the truth of what we needed to affirm as Orthodox Christians. We came up with, they grew. We came up with 6, it went up to 7, but being somebody who writes on the Trinity, I wanted to have multiples of 3. And so Father Richard passed to me the text in a sort of skeleton form. I changed it further. I then passed it to Paul Ladouceur, who added some more. We really talked, and it was important for both of them that we have things that not only spoke to nationalism, but also to the strong passivity which is in the Orthodox Church, where you hear very much one should just sort of pray about this matter. And effectively, as some people have said, that when you pray about this matter, this means that you are to do nothing and effectively allow the state authorities a carte blanche. And so we came up with various things. Paul Ladouceur expanded on this. And then I took the text and I wrote a very long version of it, which was quite a bit stronger, it must be said. And it includes many more patristic citations. It was a very long and rather a text that would not be accessible to people. At that point, Father Richard René and, because we were in different time zones, and Paul Ladouceur, they felt that this needed to be, as it were, scraped back, and so that we had something that was much more targeted. And they were able to get it down. And then we had a sort of very long text and a very short text. So the question was, what to do then? And I have a friend of mine that I've worked on very closely with this, Father John Cousin-Guisse, and he is somebody who has a long experience at these various different texts and made some suggestions as to how to harmonize them, what might be good here, what might be good to keep, what might be good to go, and sent this back. We talked about it further, and Father Richard harmonized these, and then finally we were able to come up with a text that was, acceptable. At that point, we went back to our list with Pantelis Keletzidis, Nikos Asproulis, Aristotle Papanikolaou, and many others, including Father Cyril. Father Cyril then went at it. He added some very substantive and important corrections, matters of fact, matters of language. It was, and he, as it were, gave it his imprimatur. It then passed to Pantelis Keletzidis, who added some very substantive items, more patristic citations. He wanted to ground it and also to make it a more universal text. It was agreed as this went on that this was not just about the Russian world teaching, that this was not something just related to Russia, but as it were, the situation that you have in Russia, where there is, as it were, a collaboration of the church with the state. This is something that points to the very heart of what ails our Orthodox Church. It is something where we need repentance. All Orthodox churches, from my own ecumenical patriarchate to the Romanian church to the Russian church, we all need to, in this time of Lent, to bow deep and to learn that our church is one which looks towards the kingdom that is to come, which is proclaimed in the Holy Liturgy. And this was what was agreed by all. So we wanted to be able to speak to this particular moment. And we do mention the word heresy once. That was argued about. We took away much stronger language to do with anathemas, because we came to see that this was not the sort of language that you needed in the 21st century, but we needed to condemn. It is time now, as one of my friends, for the house of God to allow judgment of itself, to be able to speak things which are not true. But these things are not just directed towards the Moscow Patriarchate and Patriarch Kirill. They are directed to all of us at this time of Holy Lent, that we may return to the inspiration which we see in the Sunday of Orthodoxy, where they came together to defend the holy icons. So too now we are called to defend the faith in every area, in every church. We must not allow ethnophilitism to be the last word of Orthodoxy. Ours is the fullness of the faith, But it can only be the fullness of the faith when we look to the brokenness of the cross, and we see there a message which is directed to all peoples, whatever their ethnicity are. It is totally fine to feel that your nation is one which God has given, that it is a gifted thing. But when this turns into a form of nationalism, which deifies the state, which deifies the people, which allows you to condemn other peoples in the name of some sort of kingdom of this world, then we have lost the truth. We have become broken, and we're at odds with what it is to be Orthodox. So this is what as I understand, as one of the drafters and people on the drafting committees and the coordinator with Pantelis Kelitzidis, understood that this text was about. And it comes from my experience of being a member of the Orthodox Church for about 30 years, more than half of my life. It comes from an experience of being in the Moscow Patriarchate, which is a church I love, which is a church where many of the godparents of my children are, from 2003 to 2015. It is a church which is a church of martyrs, a church which is a church of Pavel Florensky. It is a church which is a church of the great men like Sergei Bulgakov, of the great saints like Saint Seraphim. And it is a church which it needs to return, as we all do in all of our churches, to the very basis of the cross and the resurrection, which is the foundation of what it is to be an Orthodox Christian.